boop, beep boop, beep boop. A Just the Network production. Beep boop boop. That sounds good. Take it away, me. Hello, Gistners, and welcome to Just the Gist. I'm your host, Rosie Waterland, and in this podcast, I tell entertaining stories about anything and everything, but with just the gist of what you need to know to help you sound impressive at a dinner party. Gisting in every week is the JTG production team and you guys, the Gistners. So, let's get gisting. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another little week here at Just the Gist at JTG. Okay, there we go. We're off to an excellent
Just the Gist.
just the job. And this week, sitting with me is the glorious Kate Lever and Hayley Stavely. And
I'm not glorious?
no, just the the glorious Kate Lever,
The amazing, resplendent,
Hayley.
radiant Kate Lever, and Hayley's also here.
Hayley Stavely, the glorious Kate Lever and Hayley, joining us this week because I'm going to be giving you just the gist of one of the earlier Just the Gist episodes and one of our epic favourites that continues to be exciting to this day. There's lots of updates and fresh stuff on, but Kate Lever doesn't know a lot about it, which is why you needed to be in on this one. And James possibly knows too much about this. So
if that's possible.
Yeah, is stepping back. Like, you know of Gypsy Rose's name,
I'm
but
aware.
not much else. And Hayley Stavely knows a whole bunch, but probably not as much as James.
Yeah, James has been banned because his knowledge is too deep.
Too deep. And we're giving just the gist here. So, like, I had to stop myself a few times prepping for this episode because I was like, oh, in that bit I can just go, and we all know blah, but no, you don't know.
No,
and
we,
this is just
we
the
all
gist.
except for Kate Lever.
Yes, this is just the gist. So this is just the gist of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and the murder of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. I'm very excited about this one. Rosie's version. Although I want to avoid saying Rosie's version after the episode's too much because we're going to get to ones that are like the Jonestown Massacre, Rosie's version.
That day.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of that.
And James was like, the Holocaust.
Rosie's version. 9/11, Rosie's version. So, but it's just, this is a rewrite and a revisit of an old episode of the original Just the Gist. And it's Gypsy Rose, so let's go.
Will you be doing the voice?
I can play Gypsy singing on stage. Of course I will. Okay. It's 2015, Kate Lever. Let me set the scene for you.
Take me back.
The world was fixated at the time, and you and I probably spent a week writing articles about whether a certain dress was black and blue or white and gold.
Oh, what a day that was.
Oh, what a day that was. The clicks we got.
I know, I remember it well. It was exhilarating.
Schitt's Creek premiered and brought us one of the most iconic television characters of all time, our bebe, Moira Rose. And also, the body of Dee Dee Blanchard was found brutally murdered in her bed.
Oh God, tone shift.
Yeah. Dee Dee had been stabbed a bunch of times, and by the time she was discovered, her body had been in her bed for quite a few days. And the reason she was discovered at all is because Dee Dee had a daughter. That daughter was Gypsy Rose, and in the 24 hours before police went to the house to find her body, there had been some very disturbing statuses put up on the Facebook page that Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose shared together. So the first status that suddenly went up on this Facebook page was, "The bitch is dead."
Oof.
And the second one said, "I effing slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so effing loud. Lol."
Oh.
LOL. LOL.
Ooh.
So those two statuses went up on their shared FB page, and they were disturbing because they are just straight up disturbing, but also because Gypsy, as far as everyone in there world and who were connected to this Facebook page knew Gypsy was significantly disabled. And Dee Dee was her full-time carer. Gypsy was around 14 years old. She had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. She was confined to a wheelchair because of muscular dystrophy. She needed to be fed from a feeding tube. She battled all these serious health issues, like she's had cancers, like leukemia since she was a baby. And Dee Dee and Gypsy lived alone. Dee Dee was her full-time carer. And so when those Facebook posts went up, people freaked out and they went to the house, and when they found Dee Dee's body, Gypsy wasn't in the house. And so then people thought, well, someone's like taken Gypsy maybe.
How would she get out by herself?
Yeah. And I think her wheelchair was still there too, wasn't it?
So her wheelchair was still in the house, and all of her like vital medications and medical equipment that was like critical to her staying alive was all in the house. So there was panic that either she had been murdered in some way, or if she had been taken, she wasn't going to live long because she can't survive without all this crucial stuff for her. So people were freaking out. The police started looking straight away. The panic didn't last long though, because the next day police found Gypsy Rose. She was in another state where she had traveled willingly with her boyfriend. She was wearing a blonde Disney princess wig. She wasn't 14 with the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. She was, I think, about 24 and appeared to have the mental capacity to match.
For a 24-year-old. Yeah.
And she wasn't sick, and she also wasn't paralyzed from the waist down due to muscular dystrophy. She could walk just fine, and she and her boyfriend were the ones who had killed Dee Dee Blanchard. Strap in.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Here we go. So it comes out over the next few months that Dee Dee had, according to what Gypsy was saying, Munchausen's by proxy, which is where you, like usually a woman, it's almost always a woman, a mother, makes their child sick on purpose for attention, whatever. And apparently she had been abusing Gypsy and forcing her to pretend she was sick, and actually, in the process of that, actually making her very sick her entire life. So we go back to when Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born in 1991 to Dee Dee and Dee Dee's husband, Rod Blanchard. And this is just the gist. So I'm not going to go into like crazy detail, also because James and I did a really detailed book club on Gypsy Rose's memoir, My Time to Stand, and we'll put that in the Just the Gist feed for you, so you can go and listen to that as a bonus on the Patreon if you want.
It's such a good
episode.
The book was so much better than I was expecting.
It's a really good book.
Your conversation about it.
Yeah.
Mwah.
Oh, James and I came with notes, with passages, with like we ended up like it was so long. This book was amazing.
Quick question, did she write it, or was it a ghostwriter?
She wrote it.
She actually physically
with a ghostwriter.
Okay.
But she's, funnily enough, and we find out very quickly, a very intelligent person with no mental incapacities. So yeah, she did write a pretty incredible book. At the end, sort of at the end of all of this,
she also reads the audiobook,
and it's really good.
Yeah.
Gypsy Rose is born in 1991 to Dee Dee and Dee Dee's husband Rod. And yeah, there's a lot of detail about their background and their marriage and their dynamic, but essentially Rod and Dee Dee were only very briefly dating each other. He wasn't really interested. He was 17 and she was 23. She wasn't really happy in her life, and he tries to pull away from her because he's not super into it, and she very conveniently gets pregnant as he's trying to end things, and this is right after his mother, who's a librarian, catches Dee Dee borrowing a book from the library about how to conceive.
Oh, bless.
So Rod marries Dee Dee because even though it's 1991 and you feel like it probably shouldn't matter by that point, this is a very old school traditional place where they live. They're in the deep south of the USA. They live along the bayou in Louisiana. And it's just part of like how he's been raised. If you get a woman pregnant, you marry her. So he does, but he's not super happy about it. Pretty much straight away after Gypsy's born, Dee Dee's insisting that there's stuff wrong with her. So at about 3 months old, she becomes convinced that Gypsy has sleep apnea, and she says that Gypsy keeps like stopping breathing in her sleep, which is a thing actually. I had it when I was 3, and my mum said I snored like a truck driver, and apparently I was a very sickly child. Like I always looked pale and tired because I was never sleeping, and I was like stopping breathing in the night, and I had to get my adenoids and tonsils out.
Yeah.
So
my daughter has just been through as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a thing that like can make kids very unwell, but the doctor keeps telling Dee Dee that Gypsy does not have sleep apnea, like she's fine, but she keeps insisting, and so then she starts going to different doctors, which is very common with Munchausen's by proxy, doctor shopping.
Yeah.
And she finds a doctor who agrees with her and gives her a sleep apnea machine for Gypsy to start using in the night. Medical records and interviews and doctors and all that stuff, like they've all spoken, and there's more information has come out over the last decade. But like we initially knew a lot of this detail, particularly from the early parts of her life from Gypsy's dad, Rod, who was interviewed in the documentary that really blew up Gypsy's story, which was called Mommy, Dead and Dearest, which came out in 2017. And he sort of said he was young, his wife was, a few years older than him. He was essentially like a fly-in, fly-out worker in that, but down there a lot of men are fishermen, and so you go away fishing for like a couple of weeks and then come back. And so he was off a lot. And Dee Dee was telling him that their baby was sick, and he was like, why wouldn't I believe?
Why would you question that? And if you did,
that'd be weird. Yeah. It doesn't take long for him to leave Dee Dee, though, even though he tried to do the right thing. He just was not happy in that situation. But when he does, Gypsy's still a baby, and he says after that, Dee Dee kept insisting that Gypsy just seemed to get sicker and sicker and sicker after their relationship ended. So first, it came out that she had muscular dystrophy, and then she got leukemia, and then she had hearing problems, and then she had vision problems, and then she needed a feeding tube in her stomach, and then she couldn't walk and needed a wheelchair. And Rod was like, why does she have all these random, seemingly disconnected, wide-ranging, list of things?
Love.
Yeah. And he said Dee Dee would just say to him, she has a chromosome disorder that causes a lot of different problems, and she's not going to live past being a teenager.
How did he not research? Okay, what's it called? Let me research it. Let's find a specialist.
Isn't his mom a librarian? They know everything.
So he kind of says, it's interesting, in that first documentary, he sort of just says, I was young and after we broke up, I didn't have a huge amount of access to Gypsy. I just sort of believed what she said. He does seem like a very decent, simple, and when I say simple, I don't mean unintelligent. I just mean
just straightforward.
Just a straightforward, simple dude. Yeah. In the years since, he's became a big part of Gypsy's life, and you can tell he has an incredible amount of guilt about not looking into it more.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. Now that we kind of know him, I'm like, it seems like he would be the kind of person who would go, right, let's find the right person for this. Let me, find out more about this disorder. And
he does. He sort of says now, and I get it. He's like, I was 18, I was, and I just
a child himself.
Yeah, but he, I think, has really spent the years that he's been back in Gypsy's life, which has essentially been since she's been arrested, trying to make trying to make up for it. He's really, I think he does have a lot of guilt about it.
Yeah.
But he did start to ask questions eventually when Gypsy was a kid, because she gets a few years older and she does run around a bit and tries to do regular kid stuff. And when she does, he's like, she seems fine today. And Dee Dee will be like, well, but her muscles are weak and she'll be tired for days now, and she's back in the winter. But
whenever you're
never
not
really
here, she's almost dead.
Exactly. Just not really. It's all a bit dodgerama, and he doesn't. He admits now, ask enough or push back enough.
Well, also, first of all, he's like a fly-in, fly-out dad. He's like a part-time dad. But also, you've got to be so confident if you're going to call someone out on their child's illness.
Yes. And Dee Dee is, by all accounts, quite an intimidating, overbearing, scary woman. That he doesn't want to.
Toxic.
Yeah, that he doesn't want to. He's worried about access to Gypsy being taken away from him, which eventually it is, because as soon as he starts asking more questions and his family starts asking more questions, Dee Dee takes off.
Yeah, of course.
She moves to New Orleans, which is like the capital city of Louisiana. Is it the capital city of Louisiana? Did I just make that up? It's the main city everyone knows. It's the big city near them.
Yeah.
So Dee Dee and Gypsy are essentially getting by on child support from him because he does continue to pay it. And they're also getting like, you know, public like welfare, public assistance and donations because Gypsy's just so sick and has all these disorders and illnesses. And Dee Dee, you know, spends a lot of time like she'll fill out 100 forms if she can get $1 for her sick kid. So she starts homeschooling Gypsy and they essentially just spend 24 hours a day together, just like going to hospital, getting surgeries, getting procedures. And like, I know the first thing people ask is, well, how is she convincing doctors to do all this? And it's still hard to explain. Gypsy attempts to explain it and she does articulate it quite well in her memoir, My Time to Stand, that came out in 2024. She also talks a lot about the anger she has at the lack of accountability in the public health system and that she's thought about taking legal action, but she's not sure. But I mean, essentially, her mum was very intelligent, very good at gaming the system, but she was also very overbearing. So they doctor shop a lot. And if a kid comes to you with a medical file that says they have all these things, you're looking at that kid in the context of that medical file.
Yeah.
And
99% of the time,
it's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like every time a new thing gets added to Gypsy's medical records, like it adds to the legitimacy of it. And like back then as well, this is the 90s and then heading into the early 2000s, nothing was really digitized yet.
Of course. And we're also talking about America, and America notoriously does not have the greatest healthcare system.
Exactly.
In the world.
So she like had, if there was a doctor who doubted anything, she would just
move on.
Yeah. Like there was one doctor who, I remember in the documentary Mummy, Dead and Dearest, he said that like he saw Gypsy when she was a bit older, and he said to Dee Dee, like, her legs are fine. Like, if this girl had muscular dystrophy from when she was a baby and has not been using her legs, they would have wasted away, but her legs look fine. He said to her, like, he did a bunch of scans and tests, and he said to her, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with this girl. He wrote in the file, like, I suspect this is a Munchausen's by proxy situation. And as soon as Dee Dee saw that he had written that down, she just never went to him again. But also he never called anyone. Followed up. And that happened a lot with Gypsy that she has a lot of anger about now. She's like, some people have come forward in the years since saying, oh, yeah, I suspected, but no one really did enough.
Because really, is this, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm the ignorant one in this episode, but the Gypsy Rose situation kind of popularized the idea of Munchausen's by proxy a little bit.
It's
like
certainly brought
raised awareness more, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think it was like people knew it was a thing. It always pops up, like there's always an episode of House or Law and Order or whatever where there's a mum.
Misha Barton in the Sixth
Sense.
Like
it's so, but this really made people, it sort of brought a lot of cultural awareness to it. Yeah, Dee Dee was just very good at fooling people, gaming the system, but also could be very overbearing. She just knew she was smart and played it well. But it also got to the point where Gypsy was actually getting sick because of all the medications she was on. Like she lost most of her teeth because of everything her body was being put through. She had severe vision problems because of all the medications she was on and all these surgeries that she didn't need. So she was actually quite sick just day to day. Then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina happens and Dee Dee and Gypsy are left homeless by it, which a lot of people were at the time. And because Gypsy is so sick, they qualify for Habitat for Humanity, a program in which they build them a house and give it to them. And so now they own a house. It's in Missouri, so it's in another state that's quite far away from where they had been up until then. And so this kind of creates the perfect situation for her because it's a clean slate. Exactly. She's like, all the records were destroyed in Hurricane Katrina. I have nothing.
Yeah.
We now
so convenient.
We now own a house, so they're not super stressed about like just surviving. They're now just kind of like Dee Dee can focus on extras,
which was like custom built for them as well, like custom built ramps and everything to make sure she had all the access she needed for her wheelchair, which she definitely needed.
And she immediately goes and gets Gypsy a new birth certificate at this point that kind of completely changes her age to make her like, at this point, she was born in 91, so in 2005 she's 14. I think her birth certificate says she's like 7. Like she just knocks all this stuff off her age, and then can essentially start her medical history from scratch. We're Katrina survivors. Gypsy's really unwell. We have no medical records. Here, I'm her mother and her sole carer. Let me give you her medical history, and just can say whatever she wants.
Is the lying about her age thing just the logistics of restarting the records, or is she trying to sort of like truncate her childhood and keep her young as long as possible?
She's trying to keep her young. I think there's a lot of psychological stuff for her that goes along with trying to keep her young, but it's also like having her as a kid and a dependent is a huge part of their grift at this point, which I'm about to tell you about, because a whole lot of it relies on her being cute and childlike, and I think it just bought her more time.
At this stage, is she cute?
I'm going to show you a couple of videos.
Oh, please. Thank you so much.
So, I think changing the age bought her more time to extend Gypsy's childhood, but also psychologically, I think to her, Gypsy was all she had, and she wanted her to stay a kid.
Of course, and 14 is confronting for that's like the beginning of pre-adulthood.
Disabled children are so much more palatable than
disabled teenagers and
that's the moneymaker. A disabled 6-year-old, come on, like
adorable. Disabled 16-year-old. Ooh.
So,
not my opinion.
No, I know.
Not my opinion.
Sorry, I knew that wasn't coming straight from you.
We're just going to cut that into a clip and just post that.
Cancel everyone.
So, she does look incredibly young. She's very thin. Her growth has been pretty stunted, because she has been eating predominantly through a tube her whole life. She has all her missing teeth. Dee Dee keeps her head and eyebrows shaved. She says to her, you're going to lose your hair anyway, so we'll just keep it shaved off. And Dee Dee presents Gypsy as a child. She dresses her like a toddler. She's always wearing, little Minnie Mouse tracksuits, and she's always got, Disney crowns on and little tutus on, and she only lets her watch Disney cartoons and play with toys. But like you said, Gypsy isn't a toddler. She's 14 and she has a regular 14-year-old brain. And this is where questions of Gypsy's participation in all of this come up, because she wrote later in her memoir about how things got to this point. I'll read you this little passage. She says, "When you're little, your world is so small. I had my mother, my bedroom, and my dolls. I was a sucker for dolls. My early memories are of my mother promising a new doll to me if I would just see a new doctor, have a new procedure, nod in agreement, not ask why, hold my tongue. Many say Mama was manipulative, holding the dolls over me like that. But getting the doll was my end game, so wasn't I a willing participant? I was too young at that time for me to blame myself now, but I do wonder if I helped my mother do the things she did to me, to the system, and to my dad." And she also writes in her memoir that as she got older, "My mother lied to doctors all the way into my later teen years, saying that I never got my first period. That was very concerning to all of them. We needed to undergo another battery of tests. Maybe my pituitary gland was the problem, or maybe they should look at my bladder for good measure. To test my bladder and urine, I had a catheter inserted 4 times, which was so painful. I never asked her why the lies about this, especially when we both knew that I bled every month on schedule. I was just never a why kind of kid, and I didn't want to steal her thunder. I saw how she soaked in the attention and limelight, even though it was only local. Beyond the interpersonal attention in the form of sympathy and martyrdom she delighted in, she basked in the bright spotlight when the cameras rolled. Turn on the news, she'd say to someone she had called on the phone. Pick up the Sunday's paper. You'll never guess who's in it. She'd tease with stars in her eyes. The notoriety added a dimension to her disease. Yes, the Munchausen syndrome by proxy was the most dangerous part of the abuse, but it also acted as a backstage pass to my mother's internal cinematic show. Whatever that movie in her mind was, I wasn't the star of it. Mama's friend from high school said, your mama wanted to be famous. She wanted to marry a rock star or an actor. When the press arrived, Mama would be doing all of the talking while I numbly waited for my cue. Like a stage mother, beauty queen Dee Dee fed me my lines. It's a dream come true. This makes me so happy. My mom is my best friend. Through me and through the script we memorized, Mama could achieve some level of the fame she had long desired.
Wow.
So that's what she wrote later of how it was happening. And they were, since the internet had become a thing, getting a bit of minor fame.
Can I just quickly check with Hayley whether that is an accurate accent?
Extremely accurate. Extremely, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
okay. Well, very well done.
Yes, thank you.
The years of drama training.
Yes,
of course.
I am a trained thespian.
Mm-hmm. I know. I wouldn't question it. I was just checking.
Yeah. And the internet, since it had become a thing, they had achieved a level of local fame at that point. And I think that was about the attention to Dee Dee, but also the scamming, because they were essentially funding their lives through donations at this point and like benefits and getting free stuff, not just from like welfare from the government, but from charities. So they're like getting money off the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they go on like free Disney cruises, and they go on free trips, and they get given a free car, and they get given free groceries, and people send them money. And Gypsy is constantly like the main attraction at charity events. So she'll get up at charity events and like sing a little song in her wheelchair, and she's interviewed on the news all the time. Like, so it's becoming quite lucrative for them, but it all depends on Gypsy being young and cute and sick, a cute, sick little kid.
Did she get to make a wish for the Make-A-Wish Foundation?
I think it was the Disney cruise.
Oh, it was the Disney cruise.
Yeah.
Okay. Good choice.
Gypsy, which again,
I mean,
I'm desperate for Disney cruise sponsorship. Please send me
Disney.
Please, Disney.
Since you're listening.
Since you're listening. And Gypsy says whenever they were out in public or doing a news interview or whatever, her mum was always holding her hand, and if she said the wrong thing or sounded too smart or like slipped up, her mum would squeeze her hand really tight, and she immediately knew like that was the signal, like stop effing talking. And there's footage where you see this happening. Like you can, since Gypsy has described that, you go back and you can see her squeezing her hand, and in like news interviews and stuff. And she says after times like that, they would go home, and as punishment, her mum would handcuff her to the bed sometimes for days at a time as punishment for slipping up. So Gypsy did lean into the young thing, and I'll show you these two videos from the time. So this is Gypsy singing at a charity event as like their sort of little star attraction for the event.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, from Springfield, Missouri, to the stage.
I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hour.
So you can see how like that is a sort of, you've got all these rich people at a charity event, and you want to like bring out the big guns, which is the cute little kid who like sings. And I think the thing with Gypsy that's interesting is because she wasn't 6 years old, in that video she was like 15 or 16, she sort of knew how to play it in a way that a 6-year-old wouldn't. Like that's,
she knew what they wanted.
She knew what they wanted. Like you can see in this video too. So it was after they'd moved to Missouri where it snows, and so they'd never seen snow before because they'd grown up in Louisiana where it's like hot as, it's a hot swamp town. And so they're filming like the first time it snows at their house. And what's really interesting about this video is you can tell that she's acting like a little kid the way she thinks a little kid would act, but also she's trying to act like she has no feeling in her legs, but she could like,
she does.
You can see that she does. Like this video is nuts. Hold on.
Hello everybody, this is Gypsy Rose reporting from Aurora, Missouri. I am about to dive off our porch into the pile of snow. You ready?
Like even the way she just used her legs to land.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just jumped
onto her
she's
legs
on the floor, and she's like, ugh.
Yeah,
now I'm
so
a worm.
this is where questions of like her
complicity,
participation come up.
But then how complicit can you be when you're
exactly. So that's the thing, like in these videos, and I think it's funny because to me, I wouldn't say she looks 15, but she doesn't look 6 or 7.
No.
Like she looks like a 12-year-old who seems
a little behind.
A little immature, a little behind.
Plus, if you don't mind me being flippant for one moment, it does remind me of Mrs. Doubtfire, and everyone is always like, why didn't the wife accuse Robin Williams? But it's like, you've got to be really sure if you're going to accuse your ex-husband of pretending to be a nanny. I feel like in this situation, you've got to be so sure if you're going to say to this like charity superstar, hey, is your 7-year-old actually a teenager? Because I feel like I'm not buying
like that's a crazy, that's a crazy accusation.
That is insane. Like, and retrospectively, now that we know what the situation was, of course, people are like, why didn't people see it? But at the time,
like,
can
that's
you
not
imagine?
Who's going to be saying anything?
I'm going to go online and say her legs work.
Yeah, well, people like some people were at the time quietly, but I mean, Reddit and like those kind of online forums weren't as big a thing at the time.
Yeah.
And people have come out since and said, I didn't believe it, but it's
of
like,
course.
well, yeah. So, you know, her mum's obviously trying to infantilize her. She's playing along to a certain extent, but you can't stop puberty.
Yeah.
You can't stop teenage sexuality, baby. And as Gypsy becomes a teenager, she starts staying up at night and going on her mum's laptop, which she admitted later was possible because her and her mum were both essentially drug addicts. They both did a lot of opioids. Yeah. She like would steal the opioids that were her mother's, but like she's pretty sure her mum knew. And her mum would just knock herself out with like Valium and a whole bunch of stuff before bed. So Gypsy would have the whole night to just kind of do stuff because her mum was out of it. And so she'd like just be walking around. She said she walked around at night. She ate whatever she wanted from the fridge. Like she went on the internet on her mum's laptop, and because her mum did have that shared Facebook page for like publicity and charity and grifting and whatever, and so she had some idea of that stuff. And so she would go on the internet, and the first thing she starts trying to do is like going on dating sites, because when you're a teenager,
of course,
like you want to start rubbing your special place and other people's special places. Like you can't stop puberty, and she just started feeling any kind of puberty and sexual feelings
that
any kid would that age, you know. And so she starts going on these dating sites, and she dreams about escaping, and she dreams about like a Prince Charming because she has been raised on Disney. And she's really desperate for a boyfriend. And at one point she does meet someone first at like some Comic Con, because they would go to like these sort of Disney conferences, kind of, you know, whatever those things are. Love you, Disney. Send me on a cruise. And she met a guy at one of those, and then they got in touch online, and she told him that she like what her actual age. I think like at the time she was maybe like 20 or 19 or something. And one night she literally like packs a bag, calls a taxi, puts on a Disney wig, and runs away to his
Disney wig.
It's always like a blonde,
like an Elsa
like
style,
scraggly,
and it's like from Hot Dollar, and it makes her look like a mental patient.
Her favorite Disney princess is Rapunzel. Tangled is like her.
Because we're probably pre-Elsa at this time, pre-Frozen.
Stuck in the tower, kept in there by a maternal figure. Yeah.
To be honest, that's a bit on the nose.
So she runs away to this guy's house. Her mum wakes up, looks on the laptop, figures out where she is in 2 seconds, goes to the house, drags her out, shows the guy her fake birth certificate that says she's like 12 years old.
Oh, God.
And the guy freaks out because he was like, I thought, I did not know she was 12 or whatever. And when they get home, her mum smashes the laptop with a hammer and tells her if she does it again, she'll smash all her fingers. Oh. And she handcuffs her to the bed for 2 weeks after that. So around 2014, which would put Gypsy at 23, she meets a guy online called Nicholas Godejohn. She meets him on a dating site, and she is presenting as like not unwell. Like she says she's her own age, and she has a shaved head, and she explains to Nicholas like that's because she had cancer. And so like, but other than that, she's presenting as just like normal and healthy. Gal. So he's not like some freak who thinks she's a 12-year-old like disabled kid. Yeah. So they start chatting, and things get very sexual very quickly. He, it comes out later, has an IQ below 70, so he's quite intellectually disabled himself. He also has a history of pretty perverted sexual stuff. Like he once got arrested for sitting in a McDonald's for 8 hours while watching porn on his laptop and masturbating.
Oh, wow, okay.
So what a sesh. 8 hours.
An 8-hour sesh in a public McDonald's. So I mean,
how old is this guy?
He's around her age.
Yeah, oh, right. Okay.
He has very messed up ideas about sexual stuff and very messed up just sexual proclivities.
Yeah.
You know, it's a longer conversation, and this is just the gist, but I think porn is fucked up, man.
Oh, yeah.
And especially if you are a kid getting exposed to that stuff, or if you have the intelligence level of a kid, which he did, like, I'm not saying this alleviates any, like, responsibility or whatever from him, but, like, he clearly from a very early age was just watching a lot of messed up stuff, sexual stuff, and it gave him a lot of really messed up urges and ideas, and he's very into BDSM. He has a lot of fantasies about controlling women and having them essentially be like slaves to him in just every sense of that word. And so he basically starts sharing all this stuff with her, and she, although intellectually is in fact very intelligent, so like far more advanced than him, she's incredibly naive, like emotionally, maturity-wise, all of that. And so she's grown up very sheltered and has like never had a boyfriend, doesn't really know about sex stuff. So this is kind of her first exposure to that stuff, so she goes along with it, and they sort of video chat, and he makes her put on all these different wigs. Like, she'll put on all these different wigs and pretend to be different camera characters, and he forces her to do like sexual stuff on camera, or not forces. I mean, forces. It depends how you look at it. But they just essentially all of these sexual experiences they have together are centered around this idea of him like controlling her and abusing her, and her being like his sexual slave in some way. So things start getting pretty intense in their online relationship, and he lives in a different state, but they're desperate to like meet up and have sex for real. So they come up with this plan that I still like shouldn't but like, so she's like, my mum can't know like that I have a boyfriend or that I'm even online at night times. So we need to sort of plan this in a way that like we just bump into each other somewhere. So my mum and I are going to watch the live action Cinderella the day it comes out, because they're big Disney people. And so she's like, why don't you be at that movie session? And like, it's just like, oh, we just met this person at this movie session, and like then we can like have sex that day. But then also maybe then I can be like, oh, Mum, remember that guy who likes Disney and we met that day? Like, then we like, in her mind, this is a flawless plan, right?
Perfect plan, yeah.
And so she sends him money, and he gets a bus like 8 hours from where he lives and meets them at, doesn't meet them. He's just at this 10 a.m. session of the live action Cinderella the day it comes out.
On his own.
Like a 23-year-old kid on his own. The only other people in the session are Gypsy Rose, who is essentially a disabled child dressed as Cinderella for the screening with her mother. So her mother pushes her in the wheelchair, and they get into the cinema, and she sees that there's this creepy 21, 22-year-old kid there by himself, and Dee Dee's immediately like, let's sit away from that weirdo. Obviously. And so they don't sit near him, which like already the plan's like a bit like, oh, we wanted to sit near each other. And so then at one point during the movie, Gypsy says she needs to go to the bathroom. She wheels herself out to the bathroom by herself. He meets her in there, and they essentially like have sex in the bathroom. Well, sort of like they have a sexual encounter. This is just the gist. I won't go into the details of it, but
read the book.
Yeah, it's like it's pretty graphic. And her mum though, like I think knows something, like she's not an idiot.
Well, and so the one other person in the cinema goes to the bathroom at the same time.
Yeah, I know. And so like Gypsy gets in a lot of trouble after this. Her mum senses something happened. She starts to punish Gypsy a lot more when they get home. I think she's really panicking at this point. Gypsy's getting way more autonomy. Confident in like her attempts to have an outside life. And this is also when Gypsy says that, and this is kind of how she justifies her killing her mother being as an act of self-defense. She says that at this point, her mother started talking about her having issues with her larynx, and they had to take her to the doctor to start talking about her larynx because there was some issue with her like voice and her voice box. And her mum was like trying to convince this doctor to give her, to at least do a surgery to like check if there was something there. And it was an incredibly dangerous surgery, which would possibly damage like her voice in a way that Gypsy was like, my mother, now that I'm like getting further and further away from her, is literally trying to silence me.
And
like
she's watched The Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
she's like she's a little too Ursula for me.
Literally trying to take my voice. And so she says when she and Nicholas Godejohn start from now planning to kill her mother, it's because she knows my mum is getting to a point where she's getting desperate and she's going to start. If she's not completely incapacitated, her mum will just make her so. Like she thinks that's what's about to happen.
And like honestly, she's better off dead for Dee Dee. Like that's a whole new book of sympathy that she can open up.
Yeah, that's true.
So the relationship with Nicholas Godejohn's getting more and more intense in this time. He knows her whole situation at this point, and their sort of quite violent sexual fantasies turn into fantasies about killing Dee Dee so they can run away together. And then those fantasies start turning into actual planning. And this is where it gets murky in terms of who was manipulating who. Because he had such a low intellectual capacity, there's been questions of like, how much was she leading this? But then she was emotionally and maturity level naive, and it's come out since like quite abusive. Like you could consider this an abusive dynamic between them, which he had done to other women and continues to do to women from prison today.
Oh God.
He's like landed in this sort of very toxic dynamic with other women. So there's a lot of questions about like who I personally think it was just a perfect storm where together they landed together and did it. But there are some people who think she completely manipulated him. And
do we know how aware she was of his intellectual level?
She didn't have a lot of experience of close relationships with anyone other than her mother.
With anyone. Yeah. And also, I mean, it's so common, sadly, for people who've been abused to go into another relationship. Are abused again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of where that murky was she in on it kind of, or like how much was she manipulating him, because she's grown up being incredibly controlled, and the only way that she could ever get like approval and everything was to do exactly what her mother wanted. And if he's already got all of these like violent sexual desires and stuff, she's probably thinking like, you know, he's going to love this, like, and then he's going to love me, and it's all kind of intertwined in like a really difficult way to
and
pull apart.
She writes quite insightfully. Like she's had a lot of trauma therapy and a lot of like she's done a lot of work on herself mentally, and she writes with a lot of insight in the book, in her memoir, about like her role in it, kind of saying, I was manipulative, but I was that way not intentionally. Like it was a result of my trauma, the way I had been raised, the abuse I had gone through had taught me to survive by being manipulative. And so she does acknowledge that part in it, but also says like, but also I don't blame myself for being so. Like I just, it's murky, it's messy. Absolutely. It's not simple. She initially said she never expected he would actually go through with it. She thought the planning of the murder was just another fantasy like all the other stuff. Yeah. She's since come out and admitted
she knew.
No, I knew we were doing it. I mean, they made an actual plan. Like you go back through their messages and it was,
Was it better thought through than the Cinderella cinema?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I'll explain that to you now.
I'm strapping in.
So she sends him money for a bus ticket. She locks herself in the bathroom in the middle of the night, messages him when she knows Dee Dee will be asleep. She's left the back door unlocked. He comes in, takes a knife from the kitchen, goes into the bedroom and stabs Dee Dee a bunch of times while Gypsy is in the bathroom. She says, covering her ears, crying, just not decompartmentalizing, like just not wanting to, dissociating. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. They then take a taxi to a motel together and they spend the night like having lots of sex and like filming each other on their phones. And this footage is in the documentary. They're like giggling and eating burgers, and like she's since said she was on a F ton of opioids at the time, so she was pretty, The next day they get a bus to his house, which like I said is hours away, and she kind of moves into his bedroom where he lives with his he lives in this house with his parents. And that's when she posts those statuses on their shared Facebook, because she says a couple of days later she started feeling really guilty about the idea of no one finding her mother's body. And so she puts those statuses up because she knows people will see it and know something's up and go to the house. And yeah, after she puts them up, the police do pretty quickly go to the house and then pretty quickly find her because, you know, there's stuff like IP addresses and messages and all that kind of, like, they do
nothing.
Yeah, it takes
cover their tracks.
It takes them no time at all to find Gypsy and Nick. They both get taken into custody for questioning, and when she's interviewed, she initially pretends she doesn't know her mum was dead, and she's like such a bad actress. So the detective is like, oh, no. So, you know, we're here, we've brought you here because your mother has died, and then she goes, wait. She what? Oh, no. She what? And
that's actually better.
And she's not. I know. I can't even act that badly. Yeah. She's not talking in her Disney voice anymore. She's talking in her big girl I've got a boyfriend voice, but it's still quite a young voice.
Yeah.
And she's walking and stuff. She has a shaved head because she's not wearing the Disney wig at the police station. And then she's kind of like going, "Oh my God, what do you mean? She's dead? She's dead?" And he's like, yes. And like, he doesn't. It's like her doing her version of like what she thinks a Disney princess would do when told their mother's been brutally murdered. Like
run to the bed and
I mean, and a lot of the Disney moms are dead.
Yeah. So he starts questioning her more. She just keeps saying she doesn't know anything. And then he's like, "Can we have your phone to look through it?" And she's like, "Oh, totally." And he's like, "We're going to check all your messages." And she's like, "That's okay." And then he goes, "You know, we can read deleted messages." And she goes, "What?"
Oh, no.
That's when you can see sort of panic on her face in the footage. And she starts kind of freaking the F out. Also, Nicholas Godejohn's in a separate interview room and just confesses everything immediately.
Oh, no.
So he just says, like, "Yes, I did it. But Gypsy told me to. Gypsy said that she needed me because her mum was abusing her, and like we had to do this to keep her safe." And also, Nicholas Godejohn, the knife he used to stab Dee Dee, they were traveling from one state to another, 8 hours on a bus. There were plenty of places they could have put the knife. They decided to put it in an envelope and post it to Nicholas Godejohn's house, addressed to himself.
No. Oh, no.
So I think the idea was we'll get this really far away from the crime scene, but we won't have it traveling with us.
Flawless.
Oh, my God. In a padded envelope or just a paper envelope?
I guess a padded I mean, I'm assuming it's a big knife. So when the police get to the house, like, they find him and they also find this envelope with his name on it and the murder weapon inside.
Oh, no.
So they have the murder weapon. They have the messages and all the data, you know, between the two of them planning the murder. They have Nick Godejohn's confession. Gypsy keeps denying everything, yeah. The next day, the police hold a press conference because it was quite big news, had broken amongst people with no lives, like Haley and I, who were reading about it on Reddit threads, that this woman had been murdered and her very disabled daughter was missing. The next day, they hold a press conference to say they have found Gypsy and she's safe. And everyone's like, "Oh, my God, thank God." And then he's like, "Also, she can walk. There's nothing wrong with her. And we've arrested her because she's the one who killed her."
What a big press conference.
Yeah, that
it
was
blew up. It
like
blew
to be on
up.
that journey of like being so worried about this poor, like, disabled little kid. And then what? She's not disabled and she's the
yeah.
It did not compute.
It blew up very quickly because it was just crazy. The footage of her, of which there was so much from all like the charity interviews and news stuff and whatever, came out very quickly. And then, there's a what do you call it? Like a hearing the next day about like her arrest or whatever. And she walks into the courtroom and everyone, when you compare that footage to the footage of what everyone thought she actually was, like people were worried when those Facebook statuses went up because they were like, this is a girl with the mental capacity of a 6-year-old who has all these disabilities, can't walk. And then she walks into a courtroom. She's 24 years old. Oh, wow. And what's really like brutal is she walks into the courtroom to like hear the charges against her, and her dad, Rod, is there because she manages to get in touch with him, and he immediately comes to support her. He has this new wife, Christy, and he's been supporting her ever since she called him to be like, help me. She's been telling them she's innocent. Like they get there, they're in the courtroom as she's facing the judge, and they read out some of the initial evidence they have, which are some like very confronting sexual messages. She's and like up until this point she had told them she was innocent. And you know, there were messages like, I can't wait till you've done it and then we can F all night knowing that she's dead. Like stuff like that is read out in front of her dad. And you know, her dad, it's very interesting, his interviews over the years, because he sort of says later, like, that was when we knew, okay, she's obviously done this. Up until that point, we didn't think she had. But that was also when we knew we didn't, like, abandon her at that point. He and Christy, who has sort of become like her mother now, we were like, this is a very unwell girl. Like, and so they, you know, they stuck by her.
Did he know that, like, she could walk and stuff at that point?
Yeah, I think by the time he got to the courtroom for that hearing, like from the moment she managed to get in touch with him and he immediately sort of came to her aid with Christy, he knew something was up. Like he knew, she clearly wasn't as sick as he thought, because she was found with a boyfriend and she'd been arrested for this thing, and whether or not she did it, like he at that point didn't think she did, but obviously she'd run off with a boy. So like he sort of at that point knew, okay, something is
my gut feeling of all these years has been correct.
But they didn't think she had done it until her hearing.
And unless he'd really lost track of time, of all people, he would have known how old.
Yeah, he knew when she was born and how old she was. Yeah. But you know, after the story blows up huge after that press conference and hearing, the narrative flips pretty quickly to people feeling incredibly sorry for her. Like
does
it's
it?
It doesn't go the way of like what an evil little like you know, trickster. It's like something awful has happened to this girl. Like you know, why was she's killed her mother, but look at what her mother was making her do. Like something. Okay. So it flips pretty quickly. Rod and Christy hire a lawyer and they start like trying to take care of her as best as they can while she's in prison. And so she's held in prison until her trial, which will be separate from Nicholas Godejohn's. And she starts thriving in prison. She says later, ironically, it was the most free she'd ever been in her life so far. So they take the feeding tube out of her stomach, so she's like eating normally. Her hair starts growing back. She starts to look really healthy. She's hanging around women her own age. They've taken her off all the medications she doesn't need to be on. They do some, I don't want to say they fixed her teeth because it was like prison dentist, but they did preliminary fixing of her teeth.
Like giving her some
teeth. Like giving her some teeth. Yeah, so she gets some teeth. Like she says she felt more free at that point than she ever did living with her mother. And in 2015, which is a year after the murder, she takes a plea deal. And given her background and everything that they've since discovered she's been through, she's given a 10-year sentence for this deal. Nicholas Godejohn, who spent quite a lot of time trying to get off the charges on different things like his low IQ, his mental health, like that kind of stuff, his trial gets delayed, but eventually he goes to trial in 2018. He gets found guilty and he gets life without the possibility of parole. Because he
did the
he's a dangerous friend,
and he refuses to, like, there was apparently plea deals on the table that he didn't take. And so while Gypsy's in prison, her story blows up because the release of Mummy, Dead and Dearest, the documentary, that comes out in 2017. So anyone who didn't know about the story or had heard it in the news, then it just becomes huge. Then there's a televised drama about the story called The Act, and it has Patricia Arquette as Dee Dee, and she's like amazing. She's really good in it.
And who plays Gypsy Rose?
It's that little girl, Joey. What's her
name?
Joey
King?
Yes. She's really good.
She does the voice so
She's like
good.
More gypsy-ish than Gypsy.
Yeah, she really is. She's good, that girl. She is doing like some TV stuff from prison. So she does a big interview with Dr. Phil. And she looks good. She looks healthy.
From prison, as in she's like sort of, they send a camera in and Dr. Phil physically goes.
No, it's on whatever. But she's, there. She's in prison. She looks good. And then she does a big like interview for a sort of mini documentary series called The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And in that documentary, she admits that she's engaged because since Mummy, Dead and Dearest came out, there was a lot of interest in her. She got a lot of letters from interested male suitors, which I still maintain is weird because in Mummy, Dead and Dearest, she's interviewed in it, but there's all this footage about like, you know, from when she was presenting as a little kid and she wasn't. But there's also interviews her with in prison at the time, and she seems young and
pretty naive,
immature and naive. And so I just think any men who reached out to her after watching that are creepy.
Oh my God, incredibly creepy.
So so she admits she's engaged in this like sort of interview documentary. That engagement breaks up though. She gets engaged again and then is married in prison to a guy called Ryan Anderson in 2022. And he is the one who is with her when she is released on parole in December of 2023, 2 years early for good behaviour. She's 31 years old. Also with them when she's released are a camera crew because she is filming a reality series called Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. And it's amazing.
I know about that because of your Instagram.
Yeah, it's amazing. James and I are obsessed with Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. There's been 2 seasons so far. It's the best. She's a media sensation when she gets out because it is like the time went quick.
Story.
Like the time went quickly from when she sort of went to prison and there was this documentary and then she's out. And she's, 31 and kind of experiencing the world for the first time. She does all the talk show rounds. There's a very famous interview she does on The View where Joy kind of like dismissively says like, or people should just let go of your past or, you didn't do anything wrong. And Gypsy looks at her and goes, murder is wrong, Joy. And Joy had kind of like forgotten that she'd done it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I mean that was bad." But so she does all the rounds. She's pretty good on TV. She's pretty endearing. She gets a big makeover because I guess she's getting some reality TV money. She gets her teeth like non-prison fixed, like properly fixed. She like dyes her hair. She gets her first pair in New York of what she calls Christian Louis Vuittons.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. And the cameras are getting it all. It's the best show ever. Following her and Ryan around. Following her and Ryan around just after she's got out of prison. And like you thought it was going to be an interesting doco or reality show. It's kind of a crossover of both just because of like her getting out of prison and living life essentially in the real world for the first time in her life because she lived that sheltered weird life with her mum, then went to prison. Yeah, so she's never been a human person in the world. Yeah. But the show is like not just interesting for that reason because this girl is like messy. I mean, she's intelligent, but she's got the emotional maturity of like a 14 or 15-year-old. And so like during the first season of Life After Lockup, Gypsy leaves her husband, Ryan, for the first guy she'd been engaged to back in prison. And his name is Ken. And like he just suddenly reappears when she's out of prison and like is famous and has all this money. And he says he had originally dumped her and she was heartbroken. And he did that at the time because she needed time to find herself.
Yeah, he's a really great guy.
And then like
selflessly.
When she was famous and had money and wasn't in prison anymore, he's like, she's found herself. I'm back. And then Gypsy soon announces that she's pregnant, but the timing of the announcement is there's a lot of speculation over, well, who's the dad then? And she, to be honest, I don't think she even really is 100% sure who the dad is. She like releases this. She's on social media all the time, and she can be like quite messy on social media. She like posts stuff, I think, like when she's like sort of in a rash way, impulsive way, and then it'll get deleted, and like it's following her is the funnest thing. And she posts like a sort of DNA test proving, like one that you do while you're still pregnant, proving that Ken is the dad. But then it turns out that was just like a sponsored, dodgy DNA, like,
oh my God.
Didn't prove it to me is all I'm saying. Yeah. The baby, Aurora.
Oh, of course.
Sleeping Beauty is born. And it is finally proven through a like just regular hospital health system DNA test that the baby is Ken's. But the second season of Life After Lockup kind of ends with Gypsy, who had been like spending this whole like she leaves Ryan for Ken in the first season, spends the whole second season trying to prove to people that like Ken is the dad and we're happy. But then when the baby's born, Ken is kind of like a letdown of a partner, and she's carrying this whole mental load and he's not helping at all, and she feels quite isolated. And season 2 of Life After Lockup kind of ends up with her with a baby having an emotional affair with Ryan.
I knew. I saw it coming.
Like, it's so great. It's like, what is going on? But then the show aired, and after the show aired, she released a statement on her Instagram kind of just saying, and this was 2025, like, that part of my life with Ryan is over. Ken and I have a daughter. We're happy. We have nothing to do with Ryan anymore. And like, that's all I'm going to say on the subject. So clearly, like, something had happened. They decided, nope, like maybe just things between her and Ryan hadn't worked. I don't know. But she was like, the official line is, we are together. And the baby's his, and we're happy. Ken.
So it was like Ryan, Ken, and now Ryan, and then Ken.
So now she is, as according to her, with Ken. They have this baby. They're engaged.
Got it.
To be married. If you watch Life After Lockup, this is just the gist, so I won't go into it here. But there's a lot of speculation that she'd lied about the date of the pregnancy because she didn't want people speculating that it was Ryan's baby. Like, when her memoir came out, she did no publicity for it, and people think that's because she probably wasn't pregnant anymore when she should have been, because she didn't want people to know that she got pregnant a lot earlier than she said, which would make the crossover. There's a crossover with Ryan and Ken. Like, you can tell I've gone deep on this. This is just Rosie, let it go. But in Life After Lockup, James and I, it was driving us crazy. There's a lot of scenes that they film that they've clearly, in the middle of the scene, she'll have different hair or like a smaller belly or no belly, or before she had a bit. Like, they've clearly gone back and put in scenes later to kind of make the storyline of the show work in a way, because the show's in cooperation with her. So like, I'm just saying, keep an eye on her belly and hair if you're watching Life After Lockup, and you can see that scenes have been chopped together. But I hope there's a third season because it's an amazing show. She releases her memoir, My Time to Stand, in 2024. And like I said, James and I did a book club on it. We'll put the episode up in the feed so you can listen to it. It's a bonus on the Patreon. We got a signed copy that we ordered.
Yes. I did. I remember that detail out of all of this. I remember you getting a signed copy.
We got a signed copy that we ordered from the US, and I remember it took like 6 months to come, and James was like, are we getting scammed? Like, have we been scammed by Gypsy Rose?
She's still doing it.
But then when you watch Life After Lockup, the books are sitting in her apartment for ages, and she's like, I've got to sign those books, and she just like, and I'm like, yeah, hurry up, we were waiting for that.
Looking at the pile, like, which one was mine?
Yeah, I know. So yeah, that is pretty much where she is at this point. I'm not sure if there'll be a third season of My Life After Lockup. I hope there is.
There will be, surely.
I mean, that's how she's making money now. She's doing she does like speaking engagements. She does a lot of sort of advocacy work for female prisoners, Munchausens by proxy. Like, she has sort of framed her career as to be taken seriously as an abuse survivor, a Munchausens by proxy survivor. And she advocates for prison reform, that kind of thing. So there's all that side of her career, and then there's also Life After Lockup, which is, I have to say, although it's reality TV, it is such a compelling show to watch because, like, her family's all in it. So Rod, her dad, Christy, her sister, who is Christy's daughter. Her step, like, her half sister, who is younger than, like, I think she's like 18 or 19 when Life After Lockup airs, and Gypsy's like 32, and she is way more mature than Gypsy.
Yeah, the dynamic is so weird.
It's so
she's
weird.
Like the older sister.
Yeah,
but
it's also interesting just watching the family. Like, they're all interviewed a lot too, and just them talking about. I don't think Gypsy was like the easiest person to deal with when she got out of prison. Like, none of them wanted her to get pregnant. They all think she did it on purpose. Like, but they're all just very forgiving and patient and kind and loving towards her.
I'm glad she has them around her.
But it's a fascinating, like, dynamic to watch between all of them. And that's kind of where we've landed with Gypsy Rose. That's just the gist of Gypsy Rose Blanchard up until 2025.
Oh, I feel so brought up to date.
Yeah. Wow. It's an intense one.
It is an intense one.
And watch this space.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
The next episode.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Ryan, James and I are obsessed. Ryan does TikToks.
Does he?
Like, he kind of was really hoping the baby was his because he wanted to sort of continue being
what do you think
part of the universe. I think he's creepy and weird. I think Ken is kind of an asshole. I think Ryan seemed to have more of an emotional understanding of the fact that Gypsy was a traumatized person who needed like patience and care and time, whereas Ken just kind of gets frustrated with her and the shits with her for like, you know, the like emotional support she needs if he considers it like too much or too annoying, particularly after she had a baby. But I think they're both weird and creepy.
Of course, the starts of their relationship.
But Ryan has just been obsessive on TikTok. Like, he posts all these TikTok, like, he'll do polls like, hey guys, I'm doing another poll. Do you think the baby's mine? Do you think the baby's can? Vote here. And then like 10 minutes later, he'll be like, poll says, and it's like 90% him. He's like, I know you guys have my back. Like, he's always like, Ryan is like, and since it became official that the baby wasn't his, he's been like, I guess I'm upset. I was willing to be there. I was willing to be a dad. I'll keep chatting to you guys. So he just goes, hey guys, it's Ryan. Like, he just does all these TikTok videos. Hey guys, it's Ryan. And Ken and Gypsy sort of still do social media stuff and I guess the show and her stuff. And
Rosie, your acting training has not gone to waste.
Like, thank you.
Definitely
your
not.
Ryan was impeccable. I loved it.
It's because I've watched so many of them. So that was just the gist of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And
quite a gist it was.
Stay tuned. I know. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
I think, Kate Lever, you've been gisted.
I've been gisted.
Ew, no,
caught the
actually,
gist.
I don't like that. Don't take that back. Don't let that catch on.
Get a real gisting.
Yeah, you got a gist. Yeah, you caught the gist. I don't know.
We'll work
guys,
on that.
just don't say gisting like gisting. Okay, that was it. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Just the Gist, a Just the Network production. Executive produced and hosted by me, Rosie Waterland. Produced and edited by James Joseph with additional production support from JTG team Kate Lever and Hayley Stavely and Acast legends Guy Scott Wilson and Simon McDermott. Looking for breaking news? It drops on the Just the Gist Patreon every Tuesday, along with a whole lot of other bonus audio, video, and behind-the-scenes content, which you can access for just $1, $1 a week by clicking the link in the show notes or searching Just the Gist Podcast on Patreon. Follow Just the Gist on Instagram and TikTok at Just the Gist Podcast, and watch the video version of every episode on our YouTube channel, also at, funnily enough, Just the Gist Podcast. Follow Rosie, that's me, in all of the places at Rosie Waterland. Want to give us a suggestion? Tell Rosie to stop singing so much? Email us at hello@justthegist.com.au. Thank you, as always, for listening. Now go say something impressive at a dinner party. Bye.